Have you ever walked into a room and immediately felt your energy shift, like the air got heavier, the temperature dropped, and suddenly you're questioning yourself without even knowing why? That's what happens when you're standing in the presence of a toxic person. They don't need to shout. They don't need to push. Sometimes they don't even need to say much at all. They drain you, confuse you, make you doubt yourself, and before you realize it, they've pulled you into their game. But here's the truth. Strong women don't play that game. They don't give away their peace so cheaply. They don't allow someone else's chaos to become their reality. They walk into the same room, feel the same shift, and instead of shrinking, they stand taller. Now let me ask you, what if you could walk through life that way? What if instead of being thrown off balance every time someone tried to manipulate you, belittle you, or bait you into drama, you had the tools to stay unshakable, to hold your ground with grace, power, and absolute clarity? Because here's the reality, there will always be toxic people. You can't erase them from the world. You can't always avoid them. Sometimes they're even in your family, your workplace, or your circle. But what you can do is learn how to handle them the way strong women do. And when you learn that, when you master that, you stop surviving toxic people and you start defeating them without ever lifting a finger. So let me show you how. When you're dealing with toxic people, the very first thing you need to understand is this. It's not about you. It's about power. Every toxic person you will ever meet is running the same playbook. Whether they realize it or not, they're after one thing, control over how you feel, control over how you react, control over the narrative of the situation. And here's the most important part. They can only win if you let them. Think about it. What does a toxic person actually do? They poke, they provoke, they twist your words, they create drama out of thin air. They thrive when you lose your composure, because the moment you blow up, cry, or shut down, they've succeeded. They've pulled you into their orbit, and now you're dancing to their rhythm. That's the game. And if you don't understand the game, you'll keep losing it. A strong woman doesn't walk into that trap. She sees the dynamics at play. She knows exactly what's happening when someone tries to gaslight her, when someone tries to guilt trip her, when someone starts playing the victim after causing chaos. She doesn't get distracted by the noise. She sees the mechanics underneath. And once you see the mechanics, it stops being personal. It becomes tactical. Here's the thing. Most people misunderstand strength. They think it's about being aggressive, shutting people down, or always being the loudest voice in the room. But strength isn't about volume. Strength is about awareness. Strength is about discipline. The strongest person in the room is the one who doesn't have to prove it. The one who can watch the chaos unfold and stay calm, collected, centered. That's real power. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine two people arguing. One is screaming, throwing insults, trying to dominate the conversation. The other is standing still, not flinching, listening, but not giving away anything emotionally. Who looks stronger? Who looks like they're in control? It's never the one screaming. It's always the one who doesn't move. And that's exactly how toxic people lose their power, when they realize you're not feeding them what they want. Now here's a truth you need to hold on to. Toxic people are addicted to reaction. It's like oxygen for them. If you give them nothing, no anger, no tears, no dramatic response, they suffocate. And you'll see it happen. At first they'll push harder, they'll escalate because they're desperate for that reaction. But when you don't give in, when you stay grounded, eventually they run out of energy. And that's when the balance of power shifts in your favor. But let's be clear. Understanding power dynamics doesn't mean you tolerate bad behavior. It doesn't mean you sit back and let someone walk all over you. It means you choose how you respond instead of letting them choose it for you. There's a massive difference. One is passive acceptance. The other is active control. See, toxic people want you to believe they're the ones in control. They want you to feel small, uncertain, reactive. But the second you recognize what they're doing, the illusion breaks. And once you see through the illusion, you can't be manipulated the same way again. You reclaim your power simply by refusing to hand it over. But imagine if, instead, you just looked at them calmly and said nothing. Imagine if you gave them a smile or a simple noted, and then you went on with your day. You didn't give them the show they wanted. You didn't feed the fire. Suddenly they're the one standing there, looking foolish, while you've kept your composure. That's power. And here's the part that most people don't realize. Toxic people fear strong women. They may never admit it, but deep down they can't stand someone who won't bend to their control. They can manipulate the insecure. They can control the reactive, but a woman who knows her value and refuses to play their game, that terrifies them because it exposes their weakness. So if you want to handle toxic people the way strong women do, you start by mastering the power dynamics. You stop seeing every attack as personal and you start seeing it as strategy. And when you know the strategy, you don't take the bait. You decide when, where, and how to respond, if at all. That doesn't just protect your peace. It sends a message. It tells the world. And more importantly, it tells yourself, I am in control of me. No one else. That's the ultimate power. Because when you control yourself, nobody can control you. When we talk about handling toxic people, there's one truth you cannot escape. Your emotions are the battlefield. That's where the fight happens. And if you don't have discipline over your emotions, you're already outnumbered. Because toxic people, they're masters at one thing, pushing buttons. They study you, they test you, they watch how you respond. They want to know what makes you tick, what gets under your skin, what sets you off. Once they figure it out, that's the weapon they'll use every single time. Let me make this clear. Emotional discipline is not about suppressing how you feel. It's not about pretending that someone's words don't sting or pretending that someone's betrayal doesn't hurt. You're not a robot, and you're not supposed to be. Emotional discipline is about acknowledging the feeling, but not letting that feeling decide your next move. It's about saying, yes, that bothered me. Yes, that cut deep, but no, you don't get to control what I do next. That's strength. Think about a boxer in the ring. The moment they let anger take over, the fight is lost. Because anger blinds you. It makes you reckless, predictable, easy to counter. But the fighter who stays calm, collected, strategic, that's the one who wins. Life works the same way. If you allow toxic people to anger you, fluster you, pull you into emotional chaos, you've already stepped into their trap. They don't even have to beat you. You beat yourself. Now let me tell you something that might surprise you. Toxic people are not as strong as they appear. In fact, most of them are deeply insecure. Their toxicity comes from fear, weakness, and the desperate need to mask it. And do you know what drives them insane? A woman who refuses to flinch, a woman who refuses to show that she's shaken, a woman who meets their chaos with calm. That's like kryptonite to them. But I'll be honest, it's not easy. It takes practice. It takes self-awareness. It takes moments of catching yourself before you respond. Because sometimes the urge to clap back, to defend yourself, to prove your point is so strong. But here's what I want you to remember. Every time you resist that urge, you win. Every time you choose silence over an outburst or clarity over chaos, you're training your emotional discipline like a muscle. And just like any muscle, the more you train it, the stronger it gets. Let's get practical. Imagine someone you work with constantly undermines you. Maybe they roll their eyes when you speak in a meeting. Maybe they make side comments to chip away at your credibility. The natural impulse? Snap at them. Put them in their place. But what does that do? It makes you look reactive. It gives them exactly what they wanted. A moment where they can point and say, see, look how emotional she is. Look how unprofessional she is. Now picture this. Instead, they make their little comment and you don't even blink. You keep speaking, confident, steady, unshaken. Maybe you even smile, like their attempt didn't even land. Do you know how much that rattles them? You've just shown that their tricks don't work on you. And the moment they realize that, they lose interest. Because toxic people only play games they can win. If they can't rattle you, you're no fun to them anymore. Emotional discipline also means knowing when not to engage at all. Not every insult needs a response. Not every jab deserves your energy. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing, because silence is a statement in itself. Silence says, you don't matter enough to shake me. And trust me, nothing drives a toxic person crazier than being ignored. Here's another layer to this. Emotional discipline is not just about dealing with others. It's also about dealing with yourself. It's about managing the stories you tell yourself after the encounter. Because sometimes the most damaging part isn't what the toxic person said. It's what you repeat in your own head afterward. Maybe they're right. Maybe I am not good enough. Maybe I don't belong. That's where you need to be ruthless. Catch that thought, stop it in its tracks, and replace it with the truth. Because if you let their poison live in your mind, they've won even after they're gone. Strong women refuse to let that happen. They protect their mental space like it's sacred. They know their value and they don't let anyone rewrite it for them. That's why emotional discipline is more than just control. It's self-respect, saying, I will not let you determine how I see myself. I will not let you determine how I feel about my life. At the end of the day, emotional discipline is about freedom. The freedom to be yourself fully without being jerked around by other people's behavior. The freedom to walk into any room, any situation, and know that no matter what anyone else does, you will remain steady. That's unshakable. That's untouchable. And let me tell you this. The moment you achieve that, you'll notice something powerful. Toxic people will either back down or they'll disappear altogether. Because when their tactics don't work, when they can't get a rise out of you, they lose interest. They move on to someone else, someone easier to manipulate. And that's how you win without ever raising your voice, without ever lowering yourself to their level. You win by controlling the only thing you can control, yourself. Let's be honest, most of the pain we experience from toxic people comes from one thing. We let them get too close. We let them take liberties. We tolerate behavior we shouldn't. We give second chances, third chances, sometimes 10th chances because we think it's the kind thing to do. But kindness without boundaries isn't kindness. It's self-betrayal. And when you betray yourself over and over, toxic people notice. They sense it. They exploit it because boundaries aren't just rules. They're signals. They tell the world how to treat you. Think about it like this. If you walk into someone's home, and they have no locks on the doors, no fences, and they let anyone come and go at any time, how much respect do you have for that space? Not much. But if you walk into a home with strong doors, clear rules, and the owner confidently says, this is how we do things here, you adjust. You respect it. People respect what you protect. And that's what boundaries are. Protection for your peace, your energy, your dignity. Now here's the part people often miss. Boundaries are not about controlling others. You can't control what someone else does. You can't force them to change, to respect you, or to act differently. That's not what boundaries are for. For example, if someone constantly talks down to you, your boundary isn't, you have to stop talking to me like that. Because they may not stop. Your boundary is, if you continue speaking to me like that, I will remove myself from this conversation. Do you see the difference? You're not trying to control them, you're controlling you. And that's what makes boundaries powerful. Because nobody can argue with your choices. Strong women don't back down when someone pushes against their boundaries. They hold the line because they understand that every time you bend, every time you give in, you teach people that your no doesn't really mean no. And once people believe that, they will test you again and again. A boundary only works if it's enforced. Let me give you an image. Picture a guard standing at a gate. Every time someone approaches, the guard says, stop. You can't come in without permission. If the guard holds firm, people learn the rule. But if the guard steps aside every other time, people stop taking the guard seriously. That's exactly what happens when you don't enforce your boundaries. Words without follow-through mean nothing. Toxic people don't listen to what you say. They watch what you do, Now, here's something powerful. Boundaries don't have to be aggressive. You don't have to shout them. You don't have to justify them. You don't even have to explain them in detail. A simple, clear, calm boundary is often the most effective. For example, I'm not available to talk about that, or I won't be engaging in this conversation, or even, no, that doesn't work for me. Notice how clean that is. No extra words, no excuses, just a clear line. Strong women understand that no is a complete sentence. And the beauty of boundaries is this. They don't just keep toxic people out. They create space for the right people to come in. When you protect your energy, when you make it clear that you won't tolerate disrespect, you naturally attract people who value and respect you. Boundaries are like filters. They keep out what doesn't serve you and make room for what does. But I won't lie, setting boundaries can be uncomfortable at first. Especially if you've spent years saying yes when you wanted to say no. Especially if you're used to putting others first and yourself last. At first it feels selfish. It feels harsh. But let me tell you something. Protecting yourself is never selfish. You cannot pour into others if you're constantly drained, depleted, and disrespected. Boundaries aren't just for you, they're for everyone around you. Because when you protect your peace, you show up as your best self. Let's take it even deeper. Boundaries are not just about other people, they're also about you. They're about the commitments you keep with yourself, the promises you refuse to break. Because here's the truth, sometimes the most toxic person in your life is not out there. It's the voice in your own head telling you to tolerate less than you deserve. That's where internal boundaries matter most. You have to tell yourself, I will not let myself stay in environments that diminish me. I will not talk to myself in ways I would never allow from someone else. I will not break promises I've made to my own growth. Those are boundaries too. So if you want to know how strong women handle toxic people, here it is. They draw the line. They draw it clearly, confidently, and unapologetically. And once it's drawn, they don't erase it for anyone. Not for guilt, not for fear, not for pressure. They understand that boundaries aren't about pushing people away. They're about protecting their worth. And when you protect your worth, toxic people can't touch you. When it comes to toxic people, here's a truth that will save you endless amounts of time, energy, and peace. Not every battle is worth fighting. One of the smartest, strongest things a woman can ever learn is the art of selective engagement. Because the reality is this, if you try to fight every insult, defend yourself against every lie, clap back at every provocation, you'll spend your entire life exhausted. Toxic people thrive on dragging you into battle after battle, and if you accept every invitation, you're not just playing their game, you're living in it. Strong women know better. They understand that power isn't in proving yourself every single time. Power is in knowing when to step up and when to step away. It's about conserving your energy for the battles that actually matter, the ones that move your life forward, instead of wasting it on skirmishes designed to hold you back. Here's something you need to understand about toxic people. Many of them are relentless. They will poke, prod, and test you repeatedly just to see where your weak spots are. If they discover that every little jab gets a rise out of you, they will keep jabbing. Why wouldn't they? You've shown them that their tactics work. But if you develop the discipline to be selective, to choose when you respond and when you don't, you throw them completely off balance. Because unpredictability is unsettling for them. They can't control you if they can't predict you. Let me give you an example. Say someone spreads a rumor about you at work. The old version of you might rush to defend yourself, explain your side to everyone, and waste days or weeks trying to clean up the mess. But the strong version of you, the one who understands selective engagement, asks, does responding to this rumor serve me? Will it elevate me, or will it just keep me locked in drama? If the answer is no, you let your work, your results, and your character speak louder than gossip ever could. That silence, that refusal to dignify nonsense, is often the loudest message of all. Selective engagement is also about recognizing the difference between people who are acting in bad faith and those who are simply mistaken, ignorant, or unaware. Not every conflict comes from malice. Sometimes people just don't know better. In those cases, a calm correction, a clear explanation, or even patience might be the right response. But when someone shows you consistently that their only goal is to provoke, drain, or diminish you, that's when disengagement becomes your most powerful move. Here's where the ego can trip us up. The ego wants to win every argument. The ego wants to have the last word, to prove the other person wrong, to expose the lies and set the record straight. But here's the hard truth. Most of the time, people don't care about the truth. Toxic people don't care about facts. They care about control, which means that even if you're right, even if you have the perfect comeback, you still lose if you've spent your energy engaging with them. Strong women don't let their ego make their decisions. They let wisdom make their decisions. They ask themselves, what's the outcome I want here? Does engaging with this person get me closer to that outcome, or does it just pull me into the mud? And if it's the latter, they walk away. Because sometimes walking away isn't weakness, it's strategy. And strategy always wins in the long game. Now don't misunderstand me. Selective engagement doesn't mean you let people disrespect you or that you never stand up for yourself. There will be moments when silence is not an option, when the stakes are too high, when letting something slide would compromise your integrity or your future. In those moments, strong women engage, but even then, they engage with precision. They don't blow up. They don't over-explain. They don't drag it out. They say what needs to be said firmly and clearly. And then they move on. Minimal words, maximum impact. Think of it like a chess game. The novice player moves every piece frantically, trying to respond to every little shift. The master, on the other hand, waits. They study, they don't move unless the move is necessary. And when they do, it's intentional, powerful, decisive. That's how strong women deal with toxic people. They don't waste moves. They don't chase every piece on the board. They play the long game, and in the long game, patience always wins. Another thing to remember is this: disengaging doesn't always mean walking away physically. Sometimes it's internal. You might still have to be in the same room as a toxic person at work, in your family, in your social circle. But disengaging means you refuse to give them emotional rent in your head. They can talk, they can try to provoke, but inside, you're untouchable. You've made the decision that their words don't define you, their actions don't control you, and their chaos doesn't get to enter your space. That's disengagement at its highest level. Not removing yourself from the environment, but removing their power over your mind. Selective engagement also teaches patience. Sometimes the best response is not immediate. Toxic people thrive on urgency, on pulling you into reacting right now. But when you take your time, when you pause, when you respond hours or even days later, if you respond at all, you're sending a message. You don't dictate my timeline. I decide when and if I respond. That delay alone shifts the power dynamic in your favor. And let's talk about silence. Silence is one of the strongest tools you can ever use, because silence is not empty, it's loaded. Silence makes people uncomfortable. Silence makes toxic people question themselves. They expect resistance. They expect drama. They expect energy. But when you give them silence, they're left wrestling with their own behavior. And that's often more powerful than anything you could have said. So here's the bottom line. You don't have to fight every fight. You don't have to prove yourself to every critic. You don't have to attend to every argument you're invited to. Selective engagement means choosing your battles with wisdom, holding your peace like treasure, and refusing to waste it on people who don't deserve it. Strong women understand this deeply. They know that their time, their energy, their focus, it's all precious. And they don't hand it over to just anyone. They invest it where it counts, where it builds them, where it builds others, where it moves their life forward. Everything else? They let it go, because sometimes the greatest show of strength isn't in how hard you fight. It's in how wisely you choose not to. Pain is inevitable. There's no way around it. If you're alive, if you're out in the world, if you're chasing something meaningful, you will encounter people who try to tear you down. Toxic people will say things that cut deep. They'll betray you, dismiss you, belittle you. And yes, it hurts. But here's the question that separates strong women from everyone else. What do you do with that pain? Do you let it break you, or do you let it build you? Strong women turn pain into power. They understand that what was meant to destroy them can actually refine them. Every insult, every betrayal, every act of manipulation becomes fuel. Instead of shrinking under the weight of it, they use it as training. They ask themselves, what can I learn here? Think about the strongest people you admire. Every single one of them has a story, a scar, a moment when they were knocked down so hard it seemed like they wouldn't get back up. And yet, they did. Not just back on their feet, they came back stronger. Because pain, when processed correctly, is the ultimate teacher. Pain exposes what you didn't know you could handle. Pain forces you to dig deep and discover strength you didn't even realize you had. Here's something you need to hear. Toxic people don't actually define you. They reveal you. They reveal who you are when things get ugly, when life isn't fair, when people aren't kind. And sometimes that revelation hurts. Because maybe it shows us areas we still need to grow. But that's the gift. Once you see it, you can work on it. That's how pain becomes power. Let me tell you something personal. Every woman who's ever been underestimated knows this feeling. Every time someone looked at you and thought you were too soft, too quiet, too inexperienced, too emotional, they gave you pain in the form of doubt. But strong women don't take that doubt as a verdict. They take it as fuel. They say, watch me, watch what I do with this. Watch me take your doubt and turn it into undeniable proof. That's power. Not revenge, not bitterness, but transformation. And here's the beautiful thing. When you take your pain and turn it into power, you don't just rise for yourself. You rise for others. You become an example, a light, a reminder that it's possible. Now let's be real. Transformation doesn't happen automatically. Pain alone doesn't make you powerful. Some people stay stuck in it. Some people let pain turn them bitter, angry, small. And that's the trap toxic people want you to fall into. They want you to stay wounded because wounded people are easier to control. But strong women make a different choice. They decide, yes, this hurt me. Yes, this broke me for a moment, but it won't keep me down. I'm going to take this and build something with it. That decision, that refusal to stay broken is the turning point. Here's an image for you. Think of coal. By itself, coal is messy, dirty, fragile. But put it under pressure, and what happens? It becomes a diamond. That's you. The pressure, the pain, the weight you've carried. It doesn't diminish you. It refines you. It squeezes out weakness. It forces growth, and in the end you shine brighter than before. That's what it means to transform pain into power. And let's not forget, the pain toxic people inflict can sharpen your vision. When someone betrays you, you learn to recognize red flags faster. When someone manipulates you, you learn the tactics so you're never fooled again. When someone disrespects you, you learn the importance of self-respect and boundaries. Each wound becomes wisdom, and wisdom is the most powerful armor you can carry into the future. Strong women don't erase the past. They don't pretend it didn't happen. They carry it with them, but not as baggage, as fuel. They use it to propel themselves forward. They turn their stories into strength. And when toxic people look back thinking they left you broken, they're stunned to see you thriving, stronger than ever, building something beautiful from the very pain they caused. Here's the ultimate shift. When you transform pain into power, toxic people lose forever. Because their goal was never just to hurt you. It was to keep you down. It was to make you doubt yourself, silence yourself, shrink yourself. But when you rise, instead, when you use what they did to fuel your growth, you flip the script. You didn't just survive them. You used them. You took their chaos and turned it into clarity. You took their poison and turned it into medicine. And there's nothing more powerful than that. So the next time you feel the sting of someone's toxicity, I want you to stop and ask yourself, what can I do with this? How can this sharpen me? How can this make me unstoppable? Because the truth is, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. You get to decide whether that pain weakens you or strengthens you. And the strongest women always choose strength. When you understand this, you become unshakable. You stop fearing toxic people. You stop dreading encounters with them. Instead, you see them as opportunities. Opportunities to practice emotional discipline, to enforce boundaries, to choose wisely where you engage, and ultimately to take whatever pain they bring and turn it into undeniable power. That's how you win. Not by avoiding the pain, not by pretending it doesn't exist, but by owning it and transforming it until it becomes your weapon, your fuel, your crown. At the end of the day, toxic people will always exist. They'll show up at work, in relationships, even in families. You can't control that. But what you can control is how you handle them. And that's where your strength is. Because strong women don't waste their lives trying to fix toxic people, or bend themselves to please them or shrink to avoid them. Strong women rise. They master the power dynamics. They discipline their emotions. They protect themselves with boundaries. They choose their battles with wisdom. And they take every ounce of pain thrown at them and turn it into fuel. And here's the truth. When you do that, you don't just survive toxic people, you defeat them without ever having to fight. You rob them of the one thing they crave most, your reaction, your energy, your control. You stand taller, stronger, freer. So the next time someone tries to drag you into their chaos, remember this. You are not here to play small. You are not here to bend to their games. You are here to rise, to protect your peace, to lead with strength, and to transform every obstacle into power. Let them talk, let them provoke, let them scheme. At the end of the day, they can't touch you unless you let them. And you won't, because you know who you are. You know your worth, and you know that the strongest response to toxicity is not destruction, it's elevation. Stand tall, stay unshakable, and never ever forget their poison is powerless against your strength.